Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Keep the faith.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Well, everybody, here's your GOP hard at work last night.
What costume party I've arrived at here in Washington, but Halloween has come early here because nothing on this rule bill says debt limit.
In this rule, I mean, I'll lend him my glasses. It says in the title, increase the public debt limit. I mean, I don't know how much clearer it could be. It's in the title. Did you not read the rule?
For the love of Pete. Yeah, because, you have no argument to make when your argument is to default the United States of America. So they started taking issue with it. Doesn't say to raise the debt limit. It's in the title. I mean, this was a bizarre. Anyway, the debt limit was raised. They passed the bill raising the debt ceiling. For now, we get a 2-month reprieve. I guess Joe Biden will sign it today. Don't waste a second, Joe. We only get a 2-month reprieve. And yes, every single House Republican voted against raising the debt ceiling. Every single one of them. You got to give them credit. They're better at sticking together to do something really heinous and wrong and ugly and violent than Democrats are at sticking together to do something meaningful and helpful to families and seniors. Although I will say, because the cost of living has increased, the supply chain issue, the China tariffs nobody wants to talk about that Trump imposed. We've got a hell of a supply chain bottleneck going on, combined with COVID and people quitting their jobs all at once has created a domino effect, except the dominoes are going backwards. And the supply chain, as I told you the other day, is broken. It's, big time broken all over the world. In London, they don't have gas in like 10% of the gas stations in parts of London, not the whole city, but a good chunk of it has no gas in their gas stations. You have rolling blackouts now in India. There's planned rolling blackouts. They're running out of ways to power themselves. India uses coal, by the way. But I will say all of this is, conflating in our world to create inflation. It's actually so bad that Social Security is going to give an increase, the largest increase to people on Social Security than that we've seen since 1982. Yep. 5.9% increase, cost of living increase in the Social Security benefits that will impact about 70 million people starting in late December and January, because it's tied to a measure of inflation and it's surging as prices rise in the United States due to this coronavirus pandemic combined with, supply chain issues and tariffs. The cost of shipping things in a container, which, by the way, America does not make. How tough could it be to make a freaking container? No, they're Chinese. All the containers are made in China. But anyway, the cost of shipping one of those was around $2,000 across the oceans. Now it's $25,000. And people who actually rely on all the crap. Now, you look at I'm sure you've seen what's going on at the shipyards, all those containers lined up one after the other. Yeah, that's called a bottleneck. And the reason that they're all just sitting there is because we have no chassis. So what used to happen is those containers would be lifted by a crane and they would be put on a chassis that had wheels, and then a truck would come and back up and take the container on the and roll it wherever, down the highway. That ain't happening anymore. So there's that. Also, the cost of importing all this crap from China. Also, the shipping costs have gone through the whole thing is broken. And what people just don't care about is what's going on in Bangladesh. What's going on in Vietnam? What's going on in Indonesia? Well, here's why you care now. Just why you care now. It's because that's where a whole lot of clothes are made. That's where a whole lot of, sneakers are made. That's Vietnam, Nike, Puma. This is why you care. So that when they get COVID and their factories shut down, you don't get sneakers in time for back to school or backpacks or any of the other crap that's made over there. So we're experiencing this crazy bottleneck now because the way that inventory is kept in the United States, it's like 1 month is on the shelves. There's 1 month's worth. And so if something happens to the shipping chain, if something goes wrong anywhere in the chain, whether it's the manufacturing, the actual stuff that's going on over there in Vietnam, in Bangladesh, in China, if their factories are being closed down for COVID or whatever, it all has an effect on the supply. Now, demand is through the roof here. Demand is through the roof everywhere. This is not a demand thing. This is not an inability to pay thing. This is not we don't want it thing. But our shelves, because we have this instant total gratification thing going on here, we only have a month's supply of anything on our shelves. That's what we have. And when something goes wrong, you run out. And that's just the way we're designed. That's just the way America is. And that's why the shelves are empty. And that's why Costco has a limit on how much toilet paper you can buy or how many paper towels you can buy, right? It's because they only had a month's worth. And now the shipping is all screwed up and people are literally freaking out. And quite frankly, Biden has met today with leaders of the Port of Los Angeles. He's met at the Port of Long Beach. He's talked to Walmart and FedEx and UPS and Target and Home Depot and all these places that are experiencing empty shelves, right? Because they only stock a month's worth of crap ahead of the holidays, no less, ahead of back to school, no less, right? And so now they've agreed that they'll work 24/7 for 90 days in some sort of a bottleneck sprint remediation thing. But I got news for you. Unless and until America gets real serious about making crap here, and by crap, I mean crap. I'm talking about everything from backpacks, crap, to serious things like semiconductors. This is why, when they fail over there, we fail over here. It's the interdependent world. And, my solution to it has been the same for a really long time. If I were a lobbyist, which I'm not, I would lobby, deep-pocketed people to invest in regional hubs here and manufacture crap here, and not to replace the amount of crap that we get from over there, because we get it from all over the world. We get, Chinese semiconductors, we get batteries, we get wafers, the chipboards, we get backpacks, sneakers, clothing, T-shirts, underwears, socks, everything from there, right? So that would be too disruptive. But if we augmented what we get from there with stuff we make here, just augmented it, we would never run out of crap. Just saying. But, the Trump administration is a gift that keeps on giving. So anyway, Social Security is going to reflect this increased cost of living that we're experiencing. Our cost of living is up by 5% already. 5% over the last year. Yeah, over the last year. And so if you are one of the 70 million Americans who receive Social Security benefits, you're going to get a 5.9% cost of living adjustment. You're going to get an increase in your check beginning in December and January of about 6%. This is the largest increase that Social Security has seen since 1982, and it's going to affect more than 90% of people who use Social Security as their retirement income. So, look, that. Oh, and also our portion of Social Security taxes are going to increase. Social Security, the payments that you make into Social Security, the taxes that are taken out of your check, they're subject to a cap. So you used to only get taxed up to $142,800. That's going up.
A things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
And the financial security of families must never be gambled with, as our Republican colleagues seem to be doing, even though, as Mr. Hoyer mentioned, that Mr. McConnell at one point was playing Russian roulette with the economy. Russian roulette for Moscow Mitch. Interesting.
Yeah, it was fun to watch last night, but it was just me. I understand. It was just me watching that on the C-SPAN. But just to be fair to the Republicans, they don't have the problems that Democrats have, okay? They don't. They don't have a Joe Manchin. They don't have a Kristen Sinema. They're all Joe Manchin. They're all Kristen Sinema. So on to Build Back Better, I guess. Okay, so Joe Manchin, speaking of him, he said that of all the four family policies that are in the Build Back Better bill, we need to pick one. That's his position. We need to pick just one of the four family investments that are being proposed by the other 48 senators and the other 220 Democrats. Just two of the Democrats are telling all the other Democrats that they have to pick just one. This is amazing. And by the way, it's just one Democrat that's telling us we have to pick against all the other Democrats, because Kyrsten Sinema, no one knows what the hell she wants. People have said now she's just so erratic that you have no idea what it is that she wants. No one knows what she wants. She says, I've told the president and I'm not telling anybody else. This is bat crap crazy. Playing with our future in this manner, knowing that inflation is going through the roof and that we have the chance to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Kyrsten Sinema, though, has said she doesn't want America and Medicare to be able to negotiate down the price of prescription drugs, because Kyrsten Sinema has gone over to the dark side. Okay, she has gone and kissed the ring of Big Pharma's money, and she just can't believe her good fortune when she sees all of this case just coming on in to her leadership pack. And quite frankly, she will never be a leader of anything, so she doesn't have to give it to other people. She can just keep it and live large off of it. I mean, this is really sad, because this is good. The one common agreement that Republicans and Democrats have is lower the price of prescription drugs. It is the one thing every single one of us, almost down to a person, wants to see happen. Okay? The polling on lowering the price of prescription drugs is a home freaking run. Okay? It is unbelievably 93%. 93% of all Americans want to see Medicare be able to negotiate down the cost that Americans pay for prescription drugs. Every single person, almost to a person, agrees. You know how much money we would save if we could actually do that? We would save about $1 trillion. Yes, I mean, it all adds up real fast. We would save about $1 trillion after 12 years. We would save $1 trillion after 12 years. So just that one part of the Build Back Better proposal would pay for a third of the Build Back Better proposal. Just that one thing in that Build Back Better proposal pays for a third of it. I mean, it's been scored by the Congressional Budget Office. It's been scored by Rand Corporation, which is a nonpartisan, a think tank that scores things like this, that looks at the cost of things, that looks at the result of policy and costs that are passed on to the American people. It is a home run, and Sinema is against it. She's the only one. And because we only have 50 votes in the Senate, we have to have her vote. This is crazy, and it is the one thing that each and everybody agrees with. And you know where the battle is? The battle is Big Pharma versus AARP. AARP has become a very powerful organization. It represents most seniors in this country. It represents Medicare. It actually looks at Medicare plans. It endorses, I think, only one Medicare supplemental plan. But anyway, the only one Democrat that opposes this is Kristen Sinema. Manchin's for it. But Manchin, on the other hand, is telling us you have to pick. And you know what? I don't think everybody knows what they have to pick from. Okay? But I'm going to show you what they have to pick from. Okay? I'm going to actually show you what is on the table. Brett, put my screen up, thanks. There. Okay, so as you can see, this is the Build Back Better agenda. This is the actual White House page, okay? And this is handy because you could do it at home, right? It's not anything proprietary that I made. This is available to anybody that wants to go to whitehouse.gov/buildbackbetter, right? So here you have lower child care costs. Here you have lower higher education costs. Here you have lower prescription drug costs. Here you have lower health care costs. Here you have lowering housing costs. Here you've got a giant middle-class tax cut for families with children. Here you have a middle-class tax cut for workers without children. Oh, hey. Here you've got workforce training, clean energy jobs, and investments in teachers and schools. Okay, it's just not that complex. So this is a nice, handy list. Now, if you wanted to see the specifics, you just click on the little arrow next to each item. So when I click on lower child care costs, it tells you that for 57% of children under 6, there are no good choices for child care where they live. Only 44% of 4-year-olds have access or are served by public preschool programs. 4 of 5 private sector workers have no access to paid family leave. The president's plan ensures that no middle-class family pays more than 7% of their income for high-quality child care up to age 5, and that working families most in need pay nothing, saving the average family $14,800 per year. Biden wants to make universal preschool a reality, partnering with states to offer every parent high-quality preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds in the setting of your choice. And fully implementing this benefits not just 5 million families and not just saves the average American family $13,000 a year, but it institutes 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave to improve the health of new mothers and fathers, whether you birth them or adopt them or whatever it is, and reduces wage loss if you have to stay home and take care of a child or a relative, or you get sick, God forbid. You don't have to deal with wage loss. Manchin is saying we have to pick one of those from that particular bucket. Just one. Well, I must tell you, the newspapers went out and they interviewed like 18 economists, and they asked them, well, if you had to choose just one, which would you choose? They all said the same thing. We need them all. They are interactive, interdependent. One thing actually helps with the other thing. And if you did them all, the state of our country would be exponentially better. You'd have more participation in the workforce. You'd have less money spent on, you'd have more money spent on the children.
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. If there are fewer dollars to spend, there are choices to be made. And members have said, let's get the results that we need. But we will not diminish the transformative nature of what it is. And it is, some members have written back to me and said, I want to do everything. So we'll have that discussion. But again, in the family section of it, the transformative nature of the Biden child tax credit, child care and universal pre-K really go together.
Yeah.
That's sort of they go together. They're part of the same, meeting the same need. Issues that relate to home health care. There's certain things that we're still talking about a couple $1 trillion, but it's not, it's more, it's much less. So mostly we would be cutting back on years and something like that. But those are decisions that we have to.
I mean, they don't know what to do because we have two people who are literally gumming up everything that the Democrats and everything that Americans want to see happen. I mean, this is the crazy thing. Most Americans, most of them, and by most Americans, I'm including independents. I'm including most Republicans. There are some that want to. I think there's like 10% or 15% of the 30% of Americans who think they're still Republicans. About 10% of those, tiny number, don't want anything to happen. They don't want any money. They don't want any relief. They don't want pre-K. They don't want child care. They don't want paid leave. They don't want, food. They don't want anything. They don't want anything because they're so afraid that Biden won't fail. And then, their autocrat, their dictator, won't be able to ascend. I got news for you. Your dictator is under investigation in Georgia, in New York. The Washington, D.C. Attorney General is investigating him. You've got civil charges in New York. You've got criminal charges in Manhattan at the DA's office. This man is going to be hopefully brought to justice by one of these 24 cases that will make him ineligible to ever hold office again, let alone the presidency. So let's not concern ourselves today with the 10% of the 30% who are literally bat crap crazy and don't want anything good to happen while Joe Biden is president, I swear to God. But let's talk about the rest of us. The rest of us are very interested in this Build Back Better plan because there's so much in it that would be transformative. That would be an investment in the middle class, an investment in children, an investment in working people, an investment in healthcare, an investment in lowering the cost of prescription drugs, the savings alone. That's an investment in the amount of debt that we actually incur. The continuing dilemma of spending money and never getting anything in return for it because the Republicans constantly spend money on the very wealthy. So people want this. They want these benefits for their families. They want these benefits for themselves. And we have two Democrats, Kristen Sinema, who doesn't believe in negotiation. I don't know. And Joe Manchin, who's saying pick one. Pick one. Either paid leave or child care, 7% of your income only to paying for child care, or universal pre-K or the child tax credit. Why do we have this in our party? The idea that one guy from one of the poorest states in the United States, West Virginia, is lecturing us about how to build a middle class, which he hasn't had in his state, for the majority of his people since, I don't know, the 60s or the 70s. And it's a shame because it's really pretty there. But, I mean, this is just so stupid. He says, we have to pick one of those things. So 18 academics, 18 people who study family policies, scholars of sociology, economics professors, public policy professors, social workers, and legal eagles. They were all asked if they had to choose between one of these four, paid leave, childcare, pre-K, or the child tax credit, which one would they pick? And they said, no, it doesn't work like that. They don't want to make this choice. They said all these family policies work together. This is the quote from almost a unanimous group, right? They said, people need resources for coordinating family and employment across their lifespan. Some of them described picking one as being putting out a fire like your house is on fire. And they give you the choice, which room do you want to, put the fire out in? Do you want to put the fire out in the bedroom? Do you want to put the fire out in the living room? Do you want to put the fire out in the kitchen? You just get one room that you can put the flames out in, and then the rest of the house stays on fire. It's just so stupid. So they're saying, look, 12 weeks of paid family leave, it's people can't even afford to be sick in this country, whether they have children or they don't have children, whether they have elderly parents or they don't, whether they can't afford to not be at work every day. And so they're going to work sick. They're going to work hurt. They're going to work with a sick parent at home, or they're going to work with a sick child at home. I mean, and that's why you're seeing so many people after this pandemic quit. They're quitting their jobs. We have lost, well, just since August, we lost 4 million more workers who just quit. They stopped looking for work. They're not interested in finding work. They don't feel like their families' sacrifice is worth what they can make anymore, or that they should have to deal with these miserable people who are literally violent now, threatening now, nastier than ever before. And so they're like, I'm not going back to retail. I'm not going back to teaching. I don't want to deal with these angry parents. I'm not going to go back and, be on the electoral board. I'm not going to be an election, protection person. I'm not going to go back into retail. I'm not going to go back to my bartending job. People, the same people that used to sit at my bar and complain about welfare are now treating me when I show up for work like crap. And it makes no sense to me. So I'm just not going back. So we've lost, through the pandemic, about 10 million workers. Do you think that's not going to have an effect on the cost of things, or the shipping of things, or the ability to ship things, or the ability to stock shelves? I mean, this is what we're facing here. And also climate change is another big, thing that we're wrestling with. You know that winter freeze in Texas that I still talk about, that freak Texas store? So that limited the ability to make a lot of the petrochemicals that are needed for plastic resins and things like that. So we're not able to make certain plastic things either. I mean, it's all a ripple effect. The whole thing is a ripple effect. And this was all foisted on us by misinformation, disinformation, hateful demagogues, and crazy Republican, talking points, and people sitting on Fox News and OAN and social media targeting you for misinformation and disinformation. I mean, I got to tell you, there's something pretty heartening. 95% of Americans finally agree we have a problem with mis and disinformation in this country, but they're pretty sure they're not part of it. We're getting there.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
This is Mark McKinnon from the Bush era.
There's no compassion left in conservatism there. And as you said, it is the tip of the spear on what's happening in Republican politics. You can just go down the list from this new vaccine craziness, which is so contrary to Republican orthodoxy, right? This is the governor telling private businesses what they can or can't do. That's not conservative or Republican. On the fetal heartbeat bill, we have vigilante justice from citizens, to guns, to the border, to voting rights, just down the line. If you want to see where the Republican Party is headed, just look at Texas.
Great, everybody. They want to turn all of us into Greg Abbott's Texas. Greg Abbott's Texas. I mean, the primary there, this is what it's all about. That's why they're out Twittering each other with, hey, we're going to get right up your yin private business. We're going to ban vaccine mandates. And then Alan West, who is primary in Greg Abbott, is tweeting from his bed, his COVID hospital bed, that this is the last bastion of freedom, is my own body. I'm free to get sick. I'm free to die. I'm free to take ivermectin. I'm free to take monoclonal antibodies. This is all enriching Big Pharma. The vax thing is enriching Big Pharma. And then he actually agrees to get a IV drip at the low bargain basement price of $2,100 per of monoclonal antibodies, Regeneron, instead of a $20 vaccine, which he's tweeting against, all to win a primary in freaking GOP Texas. I mean, this is sad. This is sick. They literally want. I mean, I don't understand what it is about conservatism or Republican policy, which is a simple policy: destroy your government, Make it so that you can drown it in a bathtub. Who needs who needs a civilized society? Who needs that? Who needs, public roads or bridges or tunnels, or who needs, a government at all? No one. We want to be Somalia. By the way, the reason why we want to do that is so that we can take your money, your tax dollars, which you think you pay for a civilized society. No. Your tax dollars, and we want to give it to our donors so that we can keep power for the rest of our lives. Look at Chuck Grassley. That man is 88 years old, from Iowa. Chuck Grassley is 88 years old. He will be 89 by the time the next election rolls around. And he wants another 6-year term. Don't you want representation at all, Iowa? Don't you want anybody fighting for you? You want an 88-year-old man to just ride on into another 6 years? Because what? You don't want any representation? You don't want anybody to fight for you? You don't want anybody to bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan? You don't want anybody to, do anything for your middle-class family? You don't want any of that? I don't. It just makes no sense to me. But honestly, this is such a losing philosophy, and that's why there's fewer and fewer and fewer of them, hence the need to rig elections. But, honest engines, everybody in this country wants to see Build Back Better. Everybody in this country wants to see an investment in us. Not just public, roads, bridges, tunnels, all that. Not just levees and dams. Not just, walls. No, not that kind of wall. Levees, flood walls. Not just everybody wants to see pre-K, universal pre-K. Not just everybody wants to go back to school, but just can't afford it and would like to see 2 extra years available to them. Almost everyone in this country wants to see this package. And we're sitting here fumfering because of Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Wow. That is a freaking amazing. Kathy in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
I've been thinking this for several days now, and it's about Joe Manchin and his demands. And I think he's throwing up smoke screens. I think his big objection is that he really doesn't want the wealthy to pay. I think he would be completely on board if the people who were benefiting from the Build Back Better were the ones being taxed. And so,
but they aren't. That's who pays taxes.
No,
is the people who would benefit from Build Back Better. The sad thing is Joe Manchin's donors, they don't even bother to pay their taxes, okay? They don't even bother.
I know.
So
I know.
That's the whole issue.
I'm just thinking, I think that if we made the taxpayers pay back all of the benefits of Build Back Better, he wouldn't oppose it.
We already do.
He's only looking out.
We already do pay.
I know.
We already do.
I know.
The money in the treasury, is put there by people who get paychecks, okay? And out of that paycheck comes taxes. You don't have a chance to avoid them. You don't have, $100,000, accountants and $2,000 an hour lawyers and lobbyists on Capitol Hill, exempting your way of making money, which is your money making money, or getting paid through dividends, or getting paid as a CEO, which is tax deductible for the court. No, the money that is being collected by the Treasury is our money.
Oh, I know that, but
so
I'm trying to get in.
So why are you saying that if Joe Manchin thought that we would pay for Build Back Better, he would vote for it? Of course, we will pay for Build Back Better. We pay for everything.
Well,
we pay for defense. We pay for Build Back Better. We pay for everything.
Yes, but
Freddie in California.
Oh, hey, Randy. How are you today?
Hi, how are you?
Great. So I think when I called in, I was talking about, let's just get rid of the coal and oil subsidies. Let's start there with Manchin. Let's talk to him about that.
That's what Manchin is protecting. That's exactly what it is.
But we don't have any good negotiators. It's $10 trillion. The country needs a $10 trillion investment. We go back to that number. You know, every time they go down, we go back up.
Yeah, well, we're at $3 trillion now, and it will probably be somewhere around 2.2. And so that's where we are.
So let's go to the 2.2 on the condition that Manchin and Sinema don't get to say what it includes. Just take that deal. We'll take the 2, but you guys are out of the negotiation. What we spend it on.
You're telling Manchin and Sinema what they will accept. How does
well, no, I'm just saying that
in your mind. I mean, every other Democrat, all of them, the 221 or whatever it is in the House, and 48 in the Senate, okay, all agree that it should be $3 trillion. Some wanted 10, some wanted 6, but we all agreed with that high number. 98% of the Democrats agreed with 3.5, except for these 2. And you're saying,
let's talk about the Republic and all of the Republicans. Let's keep in mind, it's not just these 2; it's all of the Republicans. What I'm saying is, take the deal at 2, but they don't get a say in what we spend it on. So instead of funding for 10 years, we fund everything for 2 years or 5 years.
And so,
5 years.
And so American families who begin to send their kids to universal pre-K can only do it for 2 years, and then
5 years. No, you fund it for 5 years. You fund it in half.
Okay, so you
fund everything for half as long, and then the American people get a taste.
And so then they change the party in the House or the Senate, and then what? We tell them that they have to claw it back.
You fund the entire Build Back Better program for 5 years. Do you really think the Republicans are going to win? They've lost the majority in the last 7 elections or something, right? I mean, you know, especially, it's all about the showmanship. The problem with the Democratic Party, they don't have their own, I want to say, Max Headroom. Do you remember Max Headroom from MTV back in the 80s? Maybe you were in the military. But it was this phony character that got on TV like an animated bobblehead that just spewed nonsense. And at the same time, we got the internet, we got Reagan, we got the Supreme Court decisions in 76 and 78 for corporations. So if corporations are people, why aren't they paying taxes? Why aren't they going to jail? Why aren't they suffering repercussions or even accountability? It's just the showmanship thing, you know? $10 trillion. That's what the country needs. I love your show.
How do I follow? He wants $10 trillion, but then he'll take 3, and then the 3 should only fund. It should fund everything, but only for 5 years. But Democrats have no negotiating skills. What? Are you in Humboldt County? What are you smoking, drinking, snorting, shooting? I get what you mean. You want everything funded for 5 years and then let the Republicans claw it back if they get power again. I mean, you know, sad.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Keep the faith.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Most presidents get one big fiscal thing done. You know, President Obama got 2. He got the Recovery Act and the Affordable Care Act. President Trump got 1, his tax cuts.
Yeah.
President Biden is on track to getting 3 done. An enormous rescue plan, an infrastructure bill, and this reconciliation bill, which focuses around climate change and childcare. So it's a lot. I'd love to see more next year. I'd love to see more the year after. I just don't think anyone should count on that.
Well, yeah, you know, when I read that quote of yours today, I looked back at and remembered that the Clinton health care bill, comprehensive health care reform bill, Democrats' dream, 1994, it fails in the House and the Senate, doesn't pass, doesn't even come to a vote in the House, doesn't come to a vote in the Senate. And it's 16 years later that the Democrats take up health care in the Affordable Care Act, and in between, nothing. Not a single sentence of health care reform did the Democrats try to advance in Congress.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Or look at the Waxman-Markey climate change bill. In 2009, it passed the House. It failed in the Senate. It's now 12 years later, the first serious legislative effort at climate change. Now, you can always cobble things together. President Obama did some things administratively using his regulatory authority. We got some tax credits extended. But it's taken 12 years since the failure of the last major climate change legislation. Again, I hope that's not the case. Democrats should keep trying again next year. If they need to compromise with Republicans next year or the year after, they should try to do that too, anything to move the ball forward. I just think you want to try to get all of your big things in now. You want to lock them in to be permanent. Don't leave them at the wiles of a future Congress. And unfortunately, you're going to need to prioritize and make sure you do some things really well so that they contribute a lasting good.
And I kind of agree with that. And I know people are saying, oh, let's fund everything, but let's just do it half-assed, or let's just do it for 3 years or 5 years or 2 years or whatever. No, we need to get everything now, because this is the bite at the apple that doesn't come back around. It doesn't come back around. And if we don't get this money, this investment in America, and this investment in climate change, these tax credits for buying electric, the building of the charging stations all across this country, if we don't start doing it, if people don't see it, if people don't feel it, by the time they have to vote in 2022, which is coming, it's coming. It's just a year and a month from now. If they don't feel it, if they don't see it, if they don't feel the win, if they don't feel the pre-K, if they don't feel the health care, if they don't see the prescription drug prices going down, then we're in terrible. I mean, America is I hate to say it, but it's in a very, very precarious spot. I mean, democracy itself is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about policies or taxes or schooling or, fixing, getting the lead out of pipes. No, I'm talking about democracy itself will die. It will wither on the vine. And this is what I was saying yesterday. It never goes out with a bang. It never ends like that. It ends in a whimper. It ends quietly. It ends when lawlessness wins. It ends when there's absolutely no progress made for the people that this government exists for. And that's how it ends. And you don't have any rights left. You don't have the ability to vote, okay? You don't have any privacy left. None. And I'm not just talking about privacy for women. I'm talking about everyone's privacy is totally invaded. Your neighbors, like the vigilantism that's in this crazy bill in Texas, where your neighbors rat you out, your neighbors can turn you in, your neighbors can take you to court for what they consider subversive behavior or what they consider a crime, right? And the whole thing there's no privacy left. There's no voting rights left. There's nothing. There's nothing left. All there is an armed, a country like Somalia. Everybody's got a gun in Somalia. Everybody has, weapons of war. Everybody has that. But there's no government. There's no rights. There's no privacy. There's no protection for, against violence for anybody. There's no courts. There's nothing left. That is what the GOP is all about. That is why they want to turn us into Texas. They like this idea where they dictate the rules to private business when they don't like what private business is doing. They tell private business, we will fine you $14,000 each incident if you mandate a vaccine. We will deploy vigilantes against anybody that helps a woman. Anybody. We will give everyone a gun. Everyone, everywhere, all the time. How's that working out for you, Texas, by the way? Just curious. Last time I checked, it wasn't so good. But I mean, this is, and it's all based on whether or not we can deliver to the American people what exactly the American people said and say they need and say they want and say they expect. Now, if we've been talking this Build Back Better plan up, only to have it not happen, that's it. We're done. We're done. You will never have another election that is free or fair. You will not have any privacy left. None. I mean, it's so weird because people say, "Oh, well, I don't want the vaccine because there's a microchip in it, and it will track me." Do you realize that every social media, especially Facebook, that they have personality files on you, and that you have now a file where they know everything about you, not just where you live and not just where you are, not just where you're logging in, not just, I mean, we all know this, right? Intellectually, we all know this, that if somebody logs into your account and it isn't you, they'll say, oh, we had a login to your account from, Botswana. Or somebody in California logged into your account. Was that you, right? Everybody knows everything about everything that you do. They know your favorite color. They know what size pants you wear. They know what religion or no religion. They know how old your children are. They know where they go to school. They know everything about you. And then there's a script that runs behind all this filing that they have about you. And that script dictates what you're going to see more of. Why do they do that? They do that because they want you to spend more time on their platform. Time spent. That's what they sell. And so this vax stuff is just, it's crazy. It's madness. It's stupid. And they're, oh, now they're going to vax the kids. I got news for you. The kids are vaxxed when they go to school, and they're vaxxed often. They're vaxxed the first year and the second year and the third year, and the polio vaccine and the diphtheria vaccine and the rubella vaccine and the measles vaccine and the mumps vaccine and the chickenpox vaccine and the tetanus shots. And you have to have a tetanus shot like every 10 years. You have to repeat it. It's called a booster. I mean, this is crazy that people, and it makes no sense because it's brainwashing. It's brainwashing. And you have companies out there that are willing to do this to you just to get you to spend more time on their platform. So private business will always have its way with you. You will have no redress because there won't be any courts. You won't have any place to turn for anything that you understand is not American, is un-American. If we fail, that's how much is riding on this presidency. That's how much.
It's Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This, to me, is among the most corrosive things of the Trump presidency, which is the relentless attack on the truth. The idea that everybody's, they're all entitled to their own alternate facts.
Huh.
What happens if Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker?
Disaster, because he will do anything that Donald Trump tells him. And we cannot have someone with absolutely no reverence for the truth, no willingness to uphold his oath, in that position, in line to the presidency. Donald Trump doesn't need to be appointed Speaker if Kevin McCarthy is, because essentially Donald Trump will control whatever he does.
The title of your book is How We Almost Lost Our Democracy and Still Could. But hasn't a lot already been lost? I mean, isn't it on the way to being lost if everything goes as you fear it might and as it looks like it might?
I'm glad you asked that question, because one of the things I wanted to do in the book as well is show people the stories of courage of this period. Robert Caro, the historian, once said that power doesn't corrupt as much as it reveals. Exactly. And while it revealed the Kevin McCarthys and the Steve Scalises and others, it also revealed people of great courage. It revealed Liz Cheney of great courage. It revealed Adam Kinzinger to have great courage. It revealed Dan Coates and Mitt Romney and Marie Yovanovitch and Alexander Vindman and all kinds of people of conviction, who rose to the occasion, and looking at those stories ought to give us inspiration. All of us right now have a role to play in the saving of our democracy. We can't all be Marie Yovanovitch, this wonderful former ambassador to Ukraine who defied a president and came and testified and told the truth. We can't all be in her position, but we can all in our own way play a role in saving our democracy when it's at maximum risk.
And we are at maximum risk. And I can't tell you how many people are telling you this, okay? It's not just me, and it's not just some talk show hosts, and it's not just some radio host, and it's not just some newspaper opinion writer. It is every person who serves in this government, every single one of them, with the exception of Joe Manchin, who still thinks that there's some chance that bipartisanship somewhere along the line, and Kirsten Sinema, who is just, she's cray-cray, okay? There's something wrong with her. There's something wrong with her. But the Republicans know, and they're licking their chops. They're like, just waiting for Biden to fail, causing Biden to fail, rooting against Biden, setting booby traps for Biden, doing everything, including evade subpoenas, including law breaking. They are still breaking the law. I mean, tomorrow, this is crazy, but tomorrow, Bannon, Scavino, and Friday, I think it's Kash Patel, and who's the other one? They're all supposed to testify. They're supposed to show up for closed door, but they're supposed to show up for testimony. And Bannon's already said, screw the law. The law doesn't apply to me. I don't care about the law if Donald Trump isn't the president. You literally have people like Mark Meadows saying, I don't care about congressional subpoenas. I don't care about the law. They've already told you that they despise the law to the point where they don't think that they have to, uphold it. They don't have to, they can violate it. They can break it. And who's going to come after us, huh? Who's going to come after us? So that's the nature of this Trump party, which has supplanted and replaced the Republican Party. There is no Republican Party anymore. There just isn't. This ain't your dad's GOP, okay? This isn't, hey, let's just rip people off with, let's take away Social Security, which, let's privatize Medicare. Let's always be at war and, just fund defense contractors to the point where we will never have to worry about paying for another ad during an election year ever again because, there'll be a steady flow of cash. This is not that. This is an anti-democratic, white supremacist party that thinks that it would just be so much easier and better, not for you, but for them, if there were no elections. It would just be so much easier if we just had one dictator and a Duma, like a fake parliament, some sort of a fake, impression that they're voting, that there's voting going on. But then, of course, everybody, who's in power stays in power with 98% of the vote. Do you know what I'm saying? This is the party. This is what's left, and they've gone crazy. They've gone crazy. Otherwise, don't you think that it would be possible to get 2 Republicans to vote for Build Back Better? Don't you think that in a normal scenario where the revenge tour isn't happening out there, where social media isn't targeting 95% of America with, things that they want to believe about this country, whether they believe this country is good or they believe this country is bad, they're being targeted with, a bombardment of fake news to support their America sucks position, or vaccines are dangerous position, or that there is no pandemic position, or that Build Back Better is a giveaway to, poor people instead of investment in America, right? I mean, it's what we're up against. But if we weren't up against that kind of pressure, if the world was somewhat normal, if one party hadn't gone totally mad. If one party didn't turn into a bunch of lily-livered cowards who are afraid of social media, who are afraid of algorithms, who are afraid of their own base because their base has been so activated with violent thoughts and extremism and fake news and misinformation and outright disinformation, that they're so afraid of their own supporters, they don't know how to deactivate them. They don't know how to talk them down from the ledge. They don't know how to explain to them that a dictatorship is not a better scenario than a messy democracy, which is what we have. They don't know what to do. So they just go along, and repeat the lie that we don't know who won the last election. We just don't know. Of course they know. Of course they know. They've gone completely off the rails. They've just gone off the rail of American democracy. They just don't care about it anymore. They're willing to sacrifice it at the altar of something easier for them. But that's where we are. And the only thing, believe it or not, the only thing that could save us is a win. The only thing that can save us is seeing and feeling the result of changing presidents financially. It's the only thing that can stop this, slog towards Gomorrah. I mean, this is it. We are there. We are here. Lights are blinking red. Hair is on fire. All that. It's happening. Now, in a normal world, don't you think we could find 2 or 3 Republicans? That's what I'm saying. It ain't normal.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Oh, what was that? What?
I got a little off time with I thought we were going to video, then we didn't.
It sounded like a car crash.
That's actually the end of that sounder when I don't fade it down. Yeah, that's actually what's at the end of that sounder. A little inside the show production, yeah.
No, because I made that. I
could play it again for you.
Don't Give Up does not end like that.
Oh, that's not Don't Give Up. That's the end of this, the bumper on the way in.
Oh, okay. I didn't make that.
And that was a little mechanical error.
Duffy made that.
You got it.
Right. All right. Jeff in New Hampshire.
Hey, Randi.
Hiya.
Oh, good. Hey, I just wanted to call in real quick, not take much of your time. It's been pretty interesting up here in this former swing state, hearing about, what Greg Abbott's doing with abortion and, what, Ron DeSantis, and his aspirations, and we will never take that. We will never become a swing state again.
New Hampshire?
Yes.
How does Abbott and DeSantis infect New Hampshire? I don't. What are you saying?
Well, what if what we're worried about is what if DeSantis runs for president or runs for vice president under Trump? I mean, there's been talk about that. I mean, I thought that it would have been impossible for Trump to win presidency, and look what happened.
So, what does that have to do with you being a swing state? I don't understand.
Oh, we're about live free or die, and we're there. They just want to take away freedoms. They want to take away freedom to vote. They want to take away freedom for a woman to choose, have rights over her own body. And they want to say, my body, my choice, but only, have that pertain to vaccinations, which is just
I got news for them. Okay.
Good.
This is not your body. So this is not your choice. You got that? Okay, good. But I don't understand. New Hampshire and DeSantis and Abbott, what does that mean?
Well, we see that as the future of the Republican Party, and it's a threat.
And so you're saying that New Hampshire will be blue or New Hampshire will be red or what?
Oh, we're blue. We're staying blue.
And so if DeSantis, first of all, Donald Trump will never let Ron DeSantis run for president, okay? So that's gone.
Okay.
it's going to be Trump, and he may be the vice presidential nominee, but I don't think they even like each other. But it could, that could happen if Donald Trump isn't held accountable. I mean, in a court of law in Georgia for RICO violations for subverting an election. It's on tape. I don't know how in the world that doesn't actually become something that Donald Trump stands trial for. Okay, the district attorney Fani Willis in Georgia has a grand jury. Okay, for election interference, for RICO violations, for subverting an election. These are major crimes. Okay, never mind the New York attorney general with her tax case, which is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. But the Manhattan district attorney has a criminal case against Trump for fraud, for fraudulently representing the value of properties for tax purposes and then inflating the value for insurance purposes, whatever. And then you've got the D.C. attorney general who's investigating him for the insurrection itself. And then you've got the Congress investigating the origins of the insurrection and that it was planned and what was he doing that day and why was he cheering it on and like that. So how does he get out of this to run for?
He's like Teflon.
For president of the United States? How does that happen?
It shouldn't happen, but
And here's another little detail. This is something that kind of sticks with me too about whether or not he's able. I don't think he'll be able, but whether or not he's viable anymore. When I look at his polling in his beloved, Trump party that he created, half of them are done with him. So you're talking about 30% of the country, and then half of those 30% are done with him. What does that leave him? That leaves him, 10% of 30% of the country. That's like nothing. So
yeah, but that's very aggressive.
I'm not really worried so much about him and his revenge tour as the president of the United States, even though it is possible because crazier things have happened. I'm more worried about losing the House and the Senate.
Yes,
right.
Oh yeah, Manchin and Sinema. Why? What are they doing? Are they trying to destroy everything?
I don't know. That's the thing. And no one knows what she's doing. No one understands what she's doing because I don't think she's all there. Everybody's saying, well, she's very erratic or she hasn't talked to anybody. Nobody knows what she wants. How do you do? And Manchin is so, he's so
cold.
No, yes, it's all about the subsidies being taken away from fossil fuels, which he is heavily reliant on for his wealth, right? That's where his money comes from. So
that brings down the whole country.
So he's understandable, but she's not. But then again, like I said, why aren't there two Republicans in all of the Republican Party in the Senate? Okay, who would vote to invest in Americans? And how is that okay with Americans?
Well, they're afraid of Mitch McConnell, I don't think that's right. That's terrible. I think that
all Mitch McConnell has to offer them is money. That's all he has to offer them. And what do they want the money for? They want the money to, make sure that they have an easy ride on a reelect, right?
Yep.
But honest to God, why can't we find two Republicans who understand that the people would reelect them if they broke with their party and decided to vote
the right thing
to invest in them?
Absolutely. We had 7 Republicans vote against Trump in the impeachment. What about? Why isn't Lisa Murkowski or Susan Collins or somebody?
Right.
And we had them. Now they're just playing follow the leader, blindly.
So is that what people want from their Republican representative, or from the Republican senator? Do they want people who won't advocate for them? Do they really want no representation?
We don't.
That's what I'm saying. This makes no sense. It makes no sense that people
absolutely not.
That we can't get a couple of Republicans who understand that their constituents, their state would do better with a huge investment in infrastructure, with a huge investment in preschool, with a huge child tax credit to keep millions and millions of children out of poverty. It's already kept the little temporary nature of this has already prevented 3 million kids from living in poverty. We know that it works. We get that it works. We know pre-K works. We know that child tax credits work. We know family leave is something every American wants and needs. So how is it possible that people in red states aren't calling their Republican senators? That's what I don't get.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
This is not your father's Republican Party. That what has happened is that the Trumpist big lie has taken over the mainstream of the Republican Party. Last week we saw, I brought it back with me. We talked about it on the air last week. I carry it with me. We saw the esteemed Senate Judiciary Committee minority senators saying that Trump did not exercise improper influence on DOJ or his concerns centered on legitimate complaints, Chris. They turned reality upside down. He exercised improper influence 9 times, the majority found. So, and Kevin McCarthy is among the worst. I welcomed him when I was an ambassador of the United States. He came to Prague. That's not the Kevin McCarthy that we know. He is embracing this insurrectionist dogma of ex-President Trump. It is so dangerous for America if these individuals get power.
They're just clips of legal scholars. That's Norm Eisen. It's just clips of, Adam Schiff, who is a House member with a law degree, constitutional scholars, Jamie Raskin, just telling you, just looking you in the face. This is not a John Gruber situation, okay? John Gruden is a backstabbing liar. He wrote this nasty, racist, misogynist, hateful stuff down, and he put it in emails. He's just the fall guy. You understand. I just switched subjects to football. You understand what I'm saying, though. But these people are literally, like backstabbing everybody. Everybody. It's like the new way of conducting yourself. It's just to backstab people. Just I don't even understand. I mean, I do understand how America got brainwashed. I do understand, the violent nature that's been like whipped up, and and sold as being okay. Being violent is okay. Being aggressive, being a bully is okay. Being a racist is okay. Talking trash about women is okay. All this stuff it's cool. It's good. It's okay. I get that on social media, it's sort of being whipped up, and it's people get attaboys for it, and they get wrapped up in the groupthink of the haters and the groupthink of the people who don't wish us well, who are responding to them or feeding them more bad information. And just I get what's happening. I understand what's happening, and I obviously have told you that the remedy for what's going on with regard to the violence and the bullying and the organization around destroying your own government and the manufacturing of resentment and turning it into a useful tool to overthrow this government so it's not quite so messy, so you just have a dictator or an autocrat or an oligarch or whatever you want to call that person. It won't be a democracy anymore. But everybody is warning you. Everyone is telling you. Everybody is sounding the alarm. This is one of those moments. This is one of those moments where it's you and you. It's just you and you. That's all there is. The solution for the social media is it's pretty straightforward. You don't do anything about free speech. You never say, oh, you can't post or you're removed or, you don't cancel people's accounts or take them down because As we've seen, they go to even more virulent platforms, okay? They just leave, they're kicked off of one platform and they end up on Gab. They get kicked off of this Facebook and they end up on Getter. They get kicked off of Twitter and they end up on Parler. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not a solution. The solution to what ails us, which is disinformation and giving attaboys for really ugly, bad behavior. There really is a dopamine rush when you post something ugly, really heinous, and people give you a like, or people respond to you and say, I don't know who you are, but I love the way you think, or whatever it is. There's a dopamine rush for an attaboy. That's why teachers gave you gold stars, okay? It feels good. It feels really good to be validated. So the solution for Facebook, the solution for social media, is not to regulate who posts or what they post. Don't leave the speech alone. It's not the speech that's the problem. The problem is the algorithm. The problem is the script. The problem is also that these companies have too many pieces of data about you. See, exactly what you're worried about with the vaccine, which is a lie, that the vaccine has some sort of microchip that collects information about you and your DNA and your emotions and where you go and what you do and what you think. No, that's happening on social media. That's been going on for more than 10 years now. That's been going on a really stinking long time. And the way that you turn that down or off is by limiting how many data points any company can have about you. Should any company know your religion? Should any company know your favorite color? Should any company know anything like that about you? Hell no. So you limit how much data they can have on you. And then you actually legislate the script, the algorithm. That is a set of instructions that responds with very specific instructions based on you, your personality profile. That's how you stop it. But now it's you and you. You're alone in a room. Do you really believe that the best way forward for you, the best way forward for this country, the best way forward for anybody is to continue to engage in violent rhetoric or bullying? Or do you think that it would be better if everyone was invested in and you could get 12 weeks of paid leave, your kids could go to preschool, you wouldn't spend more than 7% of your total income on daycare ever? Which is better? Bullying and violence and being aggravated and agitated all the time because you're being exposed to bullcrap, or an investment in you and your family and your roads and your bridges and your airport and your tunnels and your tax status, an investment in you, a middle-class tax cut for people with children and a middle-class tax cut for people without children. Which is going to serve you? That's why you should start dialing your Republican senators, red states, and tell them you thought it through. And you want this money. You want to see the price of prescription drugs negotiated down with the awesome, awesome power of your government doing the negotiations. You have to call them and tell them, you know what? I'm a senior. I paid my whole life. I want a return on my investment. I paid taxes my whole life. I paid into Medicare. I paid into Social Security. You know what? I need glasses. I need a hearing aid. I can't afford $7,000, and I can't hear my kids on the phone, okay? And they had to move away from this podunk town because there's no work here, and now I can't talk to my grandkids because I can't hear them. Do something about that. Start dialing, because honestly, I'm so tired of trying to figure out what Kirsten Sinema's thing is. She's a one-term senator. You understand that, right? This whole fit of hers is not playing well in Arizona. Arizona needs this investment. Arizona is another place with a lot of senior citizens. Arizona is a place that would like to see prescription drug prices come down. Arizona is a place where they would like to see hearing aids and eyeglasses and dental work included in Medicare benefits, which we can totally afford. Every economist tells us that.
I'm an economist. We can afford $3.5 trillion. We could afford even more than $3.5 trillion, including paying for some of it with tax increases, Medicare reforms, and also, some borrowing, because these are investments and interest rates are really low. From an economic perspective, it can be big. But, Lawrence, if all we could get is $2 trillion, you can do a lot with $2 trillion. You can dramatically reduce child poverty. You can take nearly a gigaton of emissions out, carbon emissions, every year. You can make healthcare more affordable for millions of people. So, $2 trillion isn't just better than nothing. $2 trillion, you could do really meaningful things.
Get on the phone. Get on the email. Send them a message. Especially if you're in a red state with 2 red senators. Tell them enough already. You thought about it. You deserve better, because you do. It's just not their idea, so they don't like it. Well, too bad you do.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
This morning, American union workers helping keep your favorite foods in stock and TV shows on air, flexing new leverage. Picket lines popping up nationwide amid some industry labor shortages and severe supply chain issues.
The cheap labor bubble is finally busted.
More than 10,000 members of the United Auto Workers Union clocking out and speaking up. The group keeping 14 John Deere plants running across 5 states, demanding more.
If we have to set out for work a little while, we will.
The halt coming during a record-breaking year for the agricultural giant. $4.7 billion in profit so far. John Deere says they'll keep operations running while trying to resolve the rift. The UAW demands part of a resurgent fight for workers' rights, picking up steam from coast to coast.
We're fighting for everyone. If you clock in for a living, we're fighting for you.
Tavita Uhatafe is an airline union member who works for American Airlines. The native Tongan-turned-Texan is now visiting picket lines nationwide to show support for other unions, paying out of his own pocket to visit Nebraska for a Kellogg's labor fight and the Nabisco strike in Portland. What shifted to bring us here to this moment now?
A lot of upset workers. That's it. I mean, we're just tired of just being in the background and watching these CEOs make all this money.
Meanwhile, out in Hollywood, a potential strike by 60,000 film and TV workers is now just days away. In a series of tweets Thursday, their union writing, "If the studios want to fight, they poked the wrong bear." Their calls for higher pay, better benefits, and meal breaks growing louder ahead of the strike set for Monday, as more and more American workers look to the future.
I think they're not willing to take it anymore. And that's showing up in the strike activity. It's showing up in high quit rates. It's showing up in jobs being vacant for longer. And in fact, it's forcing employers to do better.
This is the best news. Happy Friday, you bastards. Happy Friday. There is almost a national strike underway. It is huge. It's everywhere, and it's all different industries. Now, here's the thing, okay? If you are just a regular, I clock in, I clock out kind of a worker, and you're not part of a union, then when you quit your job, you just quit your job, and that's all that happens. But when you're part of a union, you can do this as a group. You can do this in numbers. And you can actually make demands on your employer. Why? No wonder the Republicans have been so busy union busting since Ronald Reagan. and the PATCO strike, the air traffic controller strike, right? He just said, oh, screw 'em. We'll just get new people. We'll just replace. And that was the beginning of the end of workers being respected in the workplace. This has taken its toll in so many areas of work, from harassment to threats to no overtime to, hey, you don't get a meal break. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And it's not just they're calling it Striketober. There's a hashtag on the Twitter called Striketober, which is better than, strike member. See, if this would have happened last month, they would have called it Strike Member instead of Striketober. And Strike Member sounds like Dirk Diggler's going to show up somewhat. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it didn't, I didn't want to say roll off the tongue. I didn't want to say that at all. But it's actually a real hashtag. It's called Striketober. And it's helpful for people who aren't part of unions because, so many people are just quitting. This was a huge, huge thing this week that came across the purview of people who actually read and understood what was going on in this country, that in just August, 4.7 million people said, take this job and shove it. Anybody remember Johnny Paycheck? Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Yeah. So that was going on by people who just are sick of being disrespected at work, sick of being taken advantage of at work, sick of low wages, no benefits, long hours, no overtime. And on top of it, I think the thing that really, really set this in motion is the minority of Americans who are turning to violence. Yes, the minority of Americans who are literally threatening people, the Karens, the Kevins, all of these QAnon, the sickos, the psychos, the anti-vaxxer group. They are a minority of our population, but it only takes a small minority to create violence. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of people to threaten a school board, as you can see. It doesn't take a whole lot of people to threaten election workers. It doesn't take a whole lot of people to threaten, flight attendants. It's just one person that it takes on the flight to, knock out someone's teeth. And then, by the way, under the Republican regime, you don't get dental care. So they've thought of it from beginning to end, how you should suffer. And their attitude about all of it is, who cares? Well, apparently we care. Apparently most of America cares. Apparently people are working too hard for too little, too often, and being disrespected on top of it, and being threatened on top of that. And so you can count the millions and millions of people who are de facto striking, even though only 11% of America's workforce is unionized. In the 60s, back in the 1960s, where some of you remember the 60s. I, of course, do not, but some of you do. And if you do, you remember that about a third of America's workers were in unions. I will tell you what I remember from the 70s, from TV and stuff like that there. I remember not only Get Under the Rubella Umbrella, which was a series of public service announcements telling parents to get their kids vaccinated. Yeah, I remember that. They had all these commercials about the rubella umbrella and how to get under the rubella and get your kids vaccinated and protect. And people was like, oh, I guess, I trust my doctor. I'm going to do this. And, here we are all these years later, alive without rubella, without measles, without mumps, right? Without chicken pox. But then there was this other ad campaign that had this crazy song that I swear to God, I can. This is why I'm saying preschool is a great thing, because you can teach kids all kinds of stuff when they're 3 years old that will stick with them for the rest of their lives, like songs and languages. And I never really understood, why don't we teach math and put it to music, or civics and put it to music, like I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill kind of thing, which is okay. But there was this song about always look for the union label when you are buying a coat dress, swear to God, or blouse. Remember somewhere our nation's sewing, right? And so it was like you're civic duty to look for the union label. Well, that was back when everybody, not everybody, but a third of our workforce was in a union, and our economy was really starting to be great. Now, after Reagan, we have maybe 10.8%, maybe 10% of our workforce is unionized. So these strikes are really, really good. These strikes are really important because the union people can do it in vast numbers with camaraderie. You know, like everybody agrees. We're all going to walk out. Otherwise, it's just you and you alone, which a lot of people are doing anyway. That's why I'm calling it a de facto strike. You know, the millions of people who are not in a union, they're walking out too. But you have tens of thousands of union members who are using their combined might to push for better wages, to push for better benefits, to push for pensions. The reason why these UAW workers, these John Deere workers are on strike, there was a contract and 90% of them rejected it. You know why? Know why? They said, okay, we'll raise your wages, but it's going to come out of your pension funds. What? And John Deere has had a banner year in profits, like almost $5 billion in profits, but they just can't. They can't take care of their workers for some reason.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
As more and more American workers look to the future.
I think they're not willing to take it anymore. And that's showing up in the strike activity. It's showing up in high quit rates. It's showing up in jobs being vacant for longer. And in fact, it's forcing employers to do better.
And we're also following another potential strike, this one on the West Coast. More than 20,000 workers of healthcare giant Kaiser Permanente have voted to authorize a strike, citing potential pay cuts and pandemic strain at the hospitals. The company is saying that if the strike was to happen, it would have a crippling effect.
Okay, so we have so many sectors that are literally burned out, that are disrespected, that are facing violence on top of all of the low pay, no meal breaks. You know what the stagehands are asking for? And it's not just stagehands, okay? These are the people that design costumes, everybody that works to support the production of anything that you watch, whether it's, you know, you make less when you work on streaming shows than you do when you work on network shows. So there's all kinds of pay disparities in that particular arena. However, all they're asking for, this is crazy. They want meal breaks. Meal breaks. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine like you're the CEO of Disney? And you're sitting there making billions of dollars off of the hard work of all these people that work to make a production happen. And you don't want to give them a break to eat. And you know what else they want? Sleep. I swear to God, this is how bad it is in the workplace now. They want sleep. They're saying we work 12 hours. I don't know if you've ever seen what goes into a production. Movies, especially movies, TV shows, you're talking 12-hour days, okay? 12-hour days and quick turnarounds, right? And so all they're asking for is a certain amount of hours in between shifts on a production and a meal break for a 12-hour shift, a 12-hour day. That's what they're asking for. Then you've got 700 nurses in Massachusetts that are going to walk out, 2,000 New York hospital workers, 1,400 Kellogg factory workers in Michigan, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee, 6,500 people who are professors in California are on the brink of walking out the door. You got strikes at Nabisco. You got strikes at, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. 60,000 film and crew people are walking out asking for meal breaks. This is their big demand. Oh my God, how heinous are we? And so I just when you hear about strikes and you hear about walkouts and work shutdowns and all that, you think about the 1930s maybe you think about Patco in the 80s and how it ended unions, because Ronald Reagan just stepped on their throat and said, you don't deserve to have meal breaks, you don't deserve to have time off. You don't deserve to have overtime. You don't deserve to have a pension fund that's protected and well-funded and protected from fraud. Yeah, no, you don't deserve any of it. And so that was the beginning of the end. So I hope that while this sounds like the past to you, to some of you, that it's actually the future that we're looking at. Because you think about these nurses, think about how exhausted they are, how burned out they are, and they don't get paid family leave. They don't get any paid leave. They don't get time off with pay to just get right with their post-traumatic stress disorders. Holy crap, it's just so unbelievable. And remember, like production workers, just so that you can visualize who they're up against. They're up against like Warner Brothers and Netflix and, Disney, asking for meal breaks. Kind of a third world request think about it, that we would have to ask for that. That is the inequality is so unbelievable. Now, you may remember in New York, you had some Amazon workers. They went out on strike trying to, they've been out for 18 months trying to get a union set up for the first time. So far, no good. Coal miners are on strike in Alabama. Grocery workers are on strike at a food giant, Mondelez. I don't know what part of the country Mondelez International serves, but the grocery workers that work for that company, they're on strike too. This is great. This is what's needed here. And when people actually start to look at shortages and being uncomfortable and, hey, where's my crap? And I want it now. I want it now. And you start to understand that this whole system has absolutely created so much inequality. Inequality of dignity, inequality of value, inequality of treatment, inequality of respect, inequality of, forget wages. Used to be like a CEO would make 44 times what a line worker would make. It's now tens of thousands of times. Tens of thousands of times. It's so off kilter. It's so out of and this is why there is a party in this two-party system that we have. I know we have actually more than that, but not when it comes to picking a president. Nope. So in this two-party system, let's just say that for argument's sake, there's one of them that says, who cares? There's one of them that keeps the inequality going for their own personal prowess, for their own political benefit, for their own personal power. Right? And we all know which party that is. And then there's another one that is actually for the coal miner. That is actually for the nurse. That is actually for the production crew. That is actually for the grain worker. That's for the meat packing industry. That's, But you had a demagogue who was able to pretend that he gave a damn about those people, although he did not. And the only significant piece of legislation that he saw during his tenure as the president of the United States with a Republican House and a Republican Senate and the whole 9 yards was to transfer the wealth of the working people who don't have fancy lawyers. And even if we did, it'd be too late. Why? Because when you clock in and clock out, your taxes are taken out of your check. Okay, you don't have a chance to go hire an accountant and a lawyer and everything else and then try to find fancy ways to write it off, write it down, not pay it at all. No, it's weekly, it's gone, right? But he was very, like I said, he had this weird talent, which he squandered on himself instead of seeing that actually talking to the working person in this here country, without leaving out the women working people in this country, without leaving out any working person in this country in his rhetoric, and actually doing something for them, he may have still been able to keep power. He may. If he really dug coal like he said he did, or if he really cared about, instead of calling our military suckers and losers, which is really how he felt, right? If he really cared about working people, which he didn't, he may have still been president. But no, he lost because everybody saw through him. And now people are without options, except to do it themselves. Hence, national strikes. This is good.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
A lot of people are in desperate need of a facility like this and child care. I didn't fully appreciate it as a young member of the county council when I was 27 years old. But when I got elected to the United States Senate, and I was 29, I wasn't old enough to be sworn in yet. And between the time I got elected and the time I actually ultimately went to the Congress, I turned the eligible age of 30. But also in the meantime, there was an automobile accident. My wife was Christmas shopping, and my daughter was killed. My wife was killed. And my two young boys, Bo and Hunter, were very badly injured and hospitalized for a long time. And so I thought, well, I'll get some help. And I was making a decent salary as a U.S. Senator, $42,000 a year. That was a decent salary. And I could not afford the child care. Everybody wonders why I commuted every day 265 miles a day to be back and forth with my children. I could afford the train, it was cheaper, to be able to take every day so I could kiss my boys. It wasn't Ozzie and Harriet, but we'd have breakfast in the morning. And when they got a little older, get them off to school. And I'd get in the train and come home in time to, if I got home in time to have dinner, it was seldom I'd get home in time to have my dinner, and they'd save the dessert, and I got to see them, kiss them goodnight, and get in bed with them. And so it made me realize how difficult it is for the vast majority of people who need help. I was lucky. I had a mother who's nearby. A sister's my best friend who quit her job temporarily and moved in with her husband to help me raise my kids. But most people don't have that option.
That man right there is the most pro-union president you have had since the 1970s, I think. Okay, or I'll just say since the 60s. Okay, so this is your time, working people. This is your time. Organize. Don't be alone when you walk out of your job in a de facto strike because you're sick of it. You're not going to go back to work for minimum wage. You're not going to go back to work for tips. You're not going to work in a front-facing job where the people are violent towards you to make $28,000 a year as a flight attendant. I mean, this is just crazy. This is lunacy. The way that we treat people who are doing all the things that we rely on for our enjoyment, for our, whether you watch Netflix or you're an online shopper, you are dependent upon somebody who is working at less than what they really deserve. Somebody who's out in the public every single day. And, somebody who is, in harm's way every single day because America is becoming a very violent, very, very nasty population of people. And it's all born of frustration. It's all born of, listen, people are being, it's a psychological operation that's been, working on people for as long as, we've had Facebook, as long as we've had social media. They are literally, targeting you and figuring out, like what you respond to. And if you're an aggressive person and you respond to violent images or you respond to violent, ideology, they will feed you all of that, just to keep you on their platform. And they have no regard for the consequences for the rest of us who need to be out in public doing jobs. And that includes me. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. I was sitting there listening to a school board member. I was telling you about her yesterday. Her name's, she's from Brevard County here in Florida. Her name's Jennifer Jenkins, and she sits on a school board, and she tried not to complain. She tried to keep this private because she thought if she didn't keep it private, it would encourage bad actors to continue to do these horrific things to her. They're just trying to get rid of her. They're trying, not just her, but they're trying to clear out all of the public service jobs that we rely on to have free and fair elections, that we rely on to have, you know, somebody watching over, you know, the schools, making rules for for teachers, making rules for kids, making rules for a civilized school environment. That's what the school board is there for, right? And you have a minority of people who are literally hell-bent on making their jobs so uncomfortable and so scary, literally scary, that they will quit. And then these loyalists to this weird ideology of force, governing by force, governing by violence, governing by intimidation, governing by bullying, will now be in charge of your kids, or will now be in charge of your elections, or will now be in charge of your hospitals, or will now be somewhere burrowed into your doctor's office. I mean, it's just so sick. But this is what's going on. And she finally said, I have to tell you what's going on. I have to.
I don't reject people coming here and speaking their voice. They do it all the time. We don't stop them from doing that. I don't reject them standing outside my home. I reject them following me around in a car, following my car around. I reject them saying that they're coming for me, that I need to beg for mercy. I reject that when they are using their First Amendment rights on public property, they're also going behind my home and brandishing their weapons to my neighbors, that they're making false DCF claims against me to my daughter, that I have to take a DCF investigator to her play date to go underneath her clothing and check for burn marks. That's what I'm against.
All right, that is Jennifer Jenkins, who is with us now. She's an educator and a school board member for Brevard County Schools, 3rd District. Jennifer, I get anxiety just listening to what you're going through. I mean, that's Child Protective Services being called on you when it shouldn't be by someone harassing you. Who are these people harassing you, and how often is this happening?
To be honest with you, this has started over quite some time. I was elected to the school board almost a year ago, and I would say about 6 months ago was when the first group of protesters came in front of my doorstep. The people who are involved in this are a minority of voices. The majority of voices here in Brevard County support me and I believe agree with the things that I agree with. But unfortunately, it doesn't take it just takes a minority to terrorize you and harass you. And when there are no consequences for that behavior, it just becomes normalized and accepted.
It's not just that it's normalized and accepted. It's that it's being spread. It's being spread as being normal, as being encouraged, as being not just accepted, but promoted as a way to solve your problems, as a way to solve differences between people about masking or vaccination of children or any of these, issues that we used to be able to talk about, but we can't anymore because people are literally triggered online all the time. And they think their friends on Facebook are really their friends. Some of them aren't even human, I hate to tell you. Just be careful. I mean, this is bad.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Is waiting to express one's view at a school board meeting harassment and intimidation?
We know who you are. We will find you, and we know you will never be allowed in public again. You better watch out.
Harassment and intimidation? What did those terms mean in the context of a local school board meeting?
I will come after you.
I'm going to come for everybody.
You have awakened the ape army, and we will come for you, and the Holy Spirit is coming with us.
If this isn't a deliberate attempt to chill parents from showing up at school board meetings, I don't know what is.
You need to be arrested.
You're allowing child abuse. You're allowing child abuse. It's child abuse.
tell me where the line is with parents expressing their concerns.
Multiple people were arrested, including one man who was tackled to the ground by deputies.
Fists are now flying. All of this on live television.
Hey. Whoa, guys, come on. Hey, officers.
Whatever happened to just working things out?
Yeah.
You got to call the FBI.
Jeez, that was Josh Hawley, by the way, saying, oh, this is just, saying that there's harassment, intimidation, that there's violence at the school board meeting. That is just being said to chill the speech of concerned anti-vax parents. No. This is not free speech. This is violence. These are threats. This is harassment. This is stalking. This is, literally calling the Department of Children and Families on school board members, accusing them of burning their children to the point where their children are now subjected to examination by Department of Children and Family Services personnel. Lifting up their shirts, making them drop their drawers just to check to see if there's burn marks because some lunatic fringy person who doesn't want to wear a mask, doesn't want to be tested, doesn't want to be quarantined if they test positive, doesn't want their children to be kept home from school even if they're sick, and definitely does not want a vaccination to prevent what is a preventable illness and or death. You know what the number one cop killer is in this country? Do you have any idea what the number one cop killer is? It ain't bullets. It's not shots. It's not guns. It's COVID. It's COVID. And these people are being targeted by the giant head in the ether that is targeting them because they are aggressive police officers, because they respond to this Blue Lives Matter swill, even though you will get beaten with a Blue Lives Matter flag if you cross the freaking dictator, as we know. But they don't want to get vaccinated. The police don't. And the number one cop killer in this country is COVID. It's COVID. 4 times the rate of work-related deaths on the front lines of being a police officer. People who are frontline police officers are dying 4 times more often from any other thing that they do in their daily patrol in their daily lives by COVID than any other thing, any other threat, any other, occupational hazard that goes along with being a police officer. I mean, this is just madness. This is crazy. And by the way, while 98% of the Air Force is vaccinated for some strange reason, guys in the Navy don't want to get vaccinated, and they're about to be discharged. And I'm not sure if they'll get honorable discharges or general discharges. And if you're an officer in the Navy and you refuse to get a vaccination at this point, you're going to lose everything. You lose all your benefits. You lose everything. This is crazy. This is all being conducted by corporate interests known as social media companies in order to get those people to stay on their platform longer. And they're just feeding them a steady diet of misinformation, disinformation, things that, they want to think are true things. Meanwhile, they're keeping our economy from, fully opening. They are an impediment to growth. They're an impediment to progress. They're an impediment to everything, these anti-vaxxers are. And now they're an impediment to safety and well-being to actual individuals who serve on election boards, school board, you name it, nurses, doctors, flight attendants. Oh, my God. Such a and everybody's sitting there going, when did America get mentally ill? Social media is keeping people in a bubble of disinformation. It's literally brainwashing them. That's what's going on. There is no question about it. And a lot of people have had it. A lot of people are done with it, and they're quitting. They're quitting their jobs. They're walking off. They're saying enough is enough. Now, a lot of the people who are quitting their jobs who aren't union members, they're women people. They're women people. And the reason why they're not going back to these thankless jobs isn't totally about the violence. It's not totally about the disrespect. It's not totally about the unruly customers. No, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't have childcare. And what's crazy about these strikes, the people who are walking off the jobs at Kellogg's, walking off the job at John Deere, the nurses, the people who are grain workers, etc. No, they're not doing it because of anything to do with anything meaningful. They're doing it for basic meal breaks. The stagehands for basic meal breaks for 8 hours in between 12-hour shifts so that they can sleep. They're not even doing it for things like childcare. They're not even doing it for things like coverage that actually purchases glasses or helps them pay for dental. Or they're not even doing it for those things. They're doing it for basic decency. That's how low we've gone. Linda in Florida.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Linda.
Thank you for bringing up the union, support, because back in 1997, 24 years ago, I was a UPS driver and you were on our line. And we were playing you for all the striking UPS package car drivers. And we shut down the country for 15 days. Clinton didn't get involved in it. I remember you talking about that on the radio, how you supported us.
Yeah.
And to
Always
all
will.
the union people out there, it works. You just got to hold that line.
Of course it works.
For your benefits.
Of course it works. Otherwise, you're just quitting your job, in a de facto strike, but you're not getting any result from that, except that, you're not getting child care for walking off your job. You're not getting a pay raise because you walked off individually. It's only through, a camaraderie. It's only through numbers. Numbers talk, right? It's power in numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had postal workers that came over to us and said, we're 100% behind you. We had anybody that had a union job came up to us and said, we're supporting you. And we won, Randy. And all these other people, they're going to win.
Of course
we have to support them.
That's what
we have to support them.
Of course, and that's the scary thing. The scary thing to people in power, the scary thing to politicians, the scary thing to billionaires and people who, run these factories and run these, delivery systems and run these, these people are literally terrified of organization. They're terrified that people will organize. They hate when the people come. This is why everybody who's in power seeks to suppress large numbers of people talking to each other in a meaningful way. This is why the whole philosophy behind all of this brainwashing, just so you know, is to fragment us. It's to put us into little tiny pools, little camps, never connected, never having a common truth, never having a common language. Because when you do that, when you fragment people this way, when you bust up their unions or you bust up, their ability to trust media, to trust the newspaper they're reading or to trust the network news that they're watching or to trust, whatever, then you've got a fragmented society and you can steal like a banshee. Can you steal?
Oh, yeah. They divide, separate, and conquer.
That's right.
Yep. That's what we always try to tell people. And unions also, don't forget, they educate their members on how to elect officials that work for them.
Right. And
never forget that.
And what you have, and what we've always had, is makers and takers. And one party is the maker party and one party is the taker party. And I used to say this all the time, right? That we make and make and make, and they, we give and give and give, and they take and take and take. And one day it's all going to explode. And guess what?
It's coming. It's here.
It's here. It's here.
It's here.
That's it. It finally
all
came.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, this race to the bottom has finally hit rock bottom, and people are walking out of their jobs individually, which is a shame. It is a shame because you don't get to really affect too much change. I mean, they may offer, instead of $7.25 an hour, maybe they'll hire you back for $10. That's progress. But it ain't a pension, and it isn't childcare, and it isn't $20 an hour, and it isn't better working conditions, and it isn't a meal break after in the middle of a 12-hour day. Okay, it isn't overtime pay. It isn't all the things that unions are famous for accomplishing. But this is also the voter suppression thing, right? They're afraid of the people.
Mary had a little man. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The judge is now ordering former President Donald Trump to testify under oath Monday at Trump Tower. This is a significant development in a lawsuit brought back in 2015 by 6 people who accused Trump security guards of assault. No response yet from a lawyer for Mr. Trump to NBC News' request for comment. Let me bring in NBC's investigative reporter, Tom Winter, who's got more. So, Tom, this is interesting, right? Because there's been in these various legal issues that Donald Trump has gotten tied up in, there's always been the question of what if he ends up deposed, right? Walk us through expectations if he shows up for this. What happens if he does not?
Well, he's been ordered to by a judge, so he really doesn't have a tremendous choice in the matter, Hallie. The judge did give him an alternative date for later in the month if there's some sort of an unexpected illness or other hiccup that would prevent the president from sitting down for this deposition, which is scheduled to occur Monday at his Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, just a couple of blocks from where we're sitting. So that's what is expected as far as the president goes. As you said, this lawsuit goes back over 6 years to something that happened in September of 2015, where, according to these 6 individuals who are involved in filing the lawsuit against not only the former president, but as well as his bodyguard, Keith Schiller, that they were protesting the president's comments about Mexican immigrants, and that these individuals were of Mexican descent, and that they were roughed up and assaulted by Trump's security staff in the process of their protests. So that's where this case comes from.
Okay, so a measly, 6 years to get the president of the United States, former, to a deposition. Yeah, that's all it takes, everybody. Because, justice delayed isn't justice denied. This is the problem. This is the problem with every current thing that we're dealing with regard to Bannon, with regard to Kash Patel, with regard to documents and testimony, and becoming a lawless nation, right? Becoming a nation that just, Bannon is like, hey, I'm not showing up. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We're becoming a nation of lawlessness. People are getting even more violent than they, wished they were. I don't know. People are just, attacking nurses now, flight attendants now, school board members now, election officials now. I mean, nobody is safe in this country from an agitated, activated cult of brainwashed zombies who want to eat your brains or some such crap, right? But the problem is that we have allowed the court system to be so non-responsive to people who are situated in a certain way in our society, so that a deposition after you've been roughed up by a billionaire's security force on the street in front of his freaking New York apartment building takes 6 or 7 years to even ask a question under oath of this billionaire businessman who called your community a community of rapists, a community of murderers, a community of criminals, and some, I guess, are good people. That is what this deposition on Monday is set to ask Donald Trump about. It's about the reaction that a bunch of Mexican protesters received from Trump's security team back in 2015. They were roughed up after Donald Trump hired some actors, which Corey Lewandowski now says he did. He hired actors so that it would seem like Donald Trump was popular and he could come down the escalator with Melania and announce that Mexicans were rapists and murderers and criminals, and some, I guess, are good people, in order to launch his presidential campaign, right? And that the people outside who were protesting him were then roughed up and they brought a case. So it only took 6 years for, him to comply with an order to appear for deposition. Okay, so that's not so bad in our system of justice when you consider some of the other active cases against him. Summer Zervos, who was a contestant on The Apprentice, she not only alleged that Donald Trump, harassed her physically, that he assaulted her physically, right? But when she said that he did it in public, he defamed her and called her a liar. That all happened back in 2007. 2007. It's 2021, and she's not ever been able to get him under oath in a deposition. Steve Bannon feels very emboldened not to comply with a congressional subpoena because, remember what I was explaining to you yesterday, Congress has to then turn, the legislative branch, which is Congress, now has to turn to the judicial branch, the executive branch, to enforce their subpoenas. And then the best they can hope for is that the Department of Justice will then convene a grand jury. The grand jury will have to hear evidence about whether or not Bannon is in violation of the law when he contemptuously refuses to appear when ordered to do so by the legislative branch. And then the grand jury, if they feel that the prosecutors have proven their case, could issue an indictment of Bannon, and then it's set for trial in a court, in the judicial branch, right? And then it's set for a jury trial. And unless Bannon waives a jury trial, he can milk this for years. And that is what gives them the audacity to thumb their nose at a nation of laws. They think it's a joke because for them, it is funny. For them, it is something they can do. You can't do it. If you get a subpoena to appear before Congress, well, I guess you could thumb your nose at it. I guess you could. And then know that one day down the road, years from now, you would have to go on trial after all of that process plays out. That might bother you. But if you have nothing to hide, why hide? See, that's the creepy part. They have plenty to hide, and they're also playing a game with the system of democracy. They're saying it doesn't work, and they're saying it doesn't work. For the little guy, it only works for us, and you can see that. And yet, the little guy still supports the big power mongers who are doing this. It's really creepy, but, this is the problem. The problem is that it's just so slow. And justice delayed, we always believed was justice denied, and it is. But anyway, next week, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So Monday, Donald Trump has to show up for a deposition because it was court-ordered. It was ordered by a court, not Congress. It was ordered by a court, and there's no recourse there. So he has to show up. Tuesday, the House is going to vote to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. And then the process I just explained to you will begin. Hasn't even begun. Thursday next week, Chuck Schumer is going to introduce Joe Manchin's Freedom to Vote Act. Now, remember, Joe Manchin promised that if you just gave him his way with the For the People Act, which he didn't like, and he came up with his own bill, he could get 10 Republicans to vote for this. That hasn't happened, so we'll see what happens on Thursday.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
One of the changes in the 21st century compared to the Nixon era is just how breathtakingly slow the courts are at the district court level, the appeals court level, on all of these enforcement issues on congressional subpoenas. What about the Justice Department will now be tested when the Congress refers to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution of contempt of Congress. We don't know how quickly the Merrick Garland Justice Department will be able to move on this. And in the past, these kinds of things have been able to be handled very, very quickly. Right. What is your expectation of a timetable at the Justice Department for this?
I would expect they could move pretty quickly. Look, the Justice Department has a rule that they will not prosecute someone for contempt of Congress if they are refusing to testify because there has been a legitimate claim of executive privilege by the President of the United States. It'll be pretty easy for the Attorney General to pick up the phone, call the White House counsel and say, Dana, did President Biden invoke executive privilege for Jeff Clark or Steve Bannon or any of these other witnesses? And when the answer is no, as we know the answer is, it's a pretty straight up and down prosecution. And I actually think the Justice Department could do more to send a signal to these witnesses and to all of the other witnesses we know that this committee and other committees want to talk to from the Trump administration by just making it clear that if you are not the subject of an executive privilege assertion by the sitting president of the United States, not Donald Trump, but Joe Biden, and you blow off a congressional subpoena and refuse to testify, you are not immune from prosecution, and we will take those referrals very seriously. These witnesses are acting with impunity because 4 years they got away with it with no consequences. And if DOJ sent that kind of signal right now, I think you'd see some of these people coming up and testifying even before it got to a subpoena and not kind of playing chicken with Congress and playing chicken with the Justice Department the way they're doing now.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, no. I mean, could the indictment come very quickly for Steve Bannon? Yes, the indictment. Tuesday night at 7:30 at night, okay, for some strange reason, they're going to vote to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress, okay. And then that comes out of the committee, okay. That's the business committee of the select committee on January 6th. And then the whole House has to vote to hold him in contempt. And that will happen the next day, I'm guessing, because I just know that there's going to be a vote Tuesday night. I'm guessing it'll be voted on the next day. Then the referral goes to Merrick Garland's Department of Justice. That part can go fairly quickly. In that scenario that was just explained to you, where you pick up the phone, you call the Department of you call the White House press secretary, or you call the White House counsel. Sorry, you call the White House counsel and you ask the White House counsel, is the White House invoking executive privilege over any documents or testimony with regard to January 6th Steve Bannon's participation? And the answer is clearly no, because Steve Bannon was not part of the Trump administration, hasn't been part of the Trump administration since 2017. The insurrection happened in 2021. Okay, so that's a long period of time to just invoke friendship under executive privilege, which doesn't exist. Okay, so there's that. That part could go really quickly. But remember that just means that it can then go to a grand jury to indict him, and then it will get set for trial. Right? I mean, I don't get where all these people are saying this can go really quickly and this can just, no, I don't see it going very quickly at all. I don't see it happening at all. I don't see anything happening for years. For years. I mean, yes, it's true that the reason why they got away with not complying with congressional subpoenas, like Don McGahn didn't show up until, 2 years later, is simple. Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General of the United States, before him Jeff Sessions, would invoke executive privilege on behalf of Don McGahn, right? Or would, not prosecute Don McGahn. Well, that's different, but it just gets it to the next level. It doesn't get it done. It doesn't get it adjudicated. It doesn't get Steve Bannon locked up. In fact, I would bet you he never gets locked up. And this is the reason why We are going toward a lawless nation. This is the reason why people are so, I'll just say, disappointed in how America grew up and how it turned out. Because there are so many different systems of justice for so many different people in this country that it's just, it's impossible to say justice is blind. It's impossible to say it's an equal justice under law, which is what is etched in the Supreme Court's marble above the door. That's what it says over the Supreme Court, equal justice under law. There is no way we can kid ourselves anymore and say there's equal justice under law for the privileged elite, for the moneyed elite, for the well-connected. There's no way. I mean, for a really long time, we've known stats like, Mississippi, or no, let's use Alabama, where you have Governor Kay Ivey, who is literally taking the COVID relief money and using it to build new prisons. Why do I bring that up in this conversation? Simple. 23% of the population in Alabama are African American, are black, and yet almost 48% of everyone in jail is black. Because we haven't had equal justice under law in many places in this here country, ever. So we sort of intellectually know that if we're willing to know that. The facts are there, and they're demonstrably provable that that is an injustice that is committed every day in courtrooms across this country, whether it's implicit bias or, just implicit bias. But that said, set that aside. Now we've got not just white-collar crime that's different from blue-collar crime. No, now we have an entire group of people who could say, I'm friends with the right people. I'm friends. I'm just friends with them. And I can literally organize an overthrow of the American system of governance and get away with it because no one can call me in to question me about anything I did, even though I did it on the air, even though I did it on television, even though I did it on the internet, even though I did it on tape. You can't ask a question of me about what these tapes are, or, I mean, this is just unbelievable. And these are some of the crimes that we always thought were crimes you couldn't do. No one could. No one could, engage in seditious behavior. No one could terrorize be a domestic terrorist. No one could do an overthrow of the government, right?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
It seems Jeff Clark, my guess about him is that it's very likely that he will show up to testify. It's also very likely he will take the Fifth Amendment to virtually every question.
And then there's that.
I think that's likely. I think it's certainly he's going to have to show up and testify. He really is an island by himself. If you look at the way he was behaving in those final weeks, he was acting completely beyond his authority. He's supposed to be in charge of environmental crimes and the civil division, and was conducting his own investigations or supposed investigations into voter fraud. He was violating multiple department rules, having contacts with the White House, having contacts with members of Congress, both of which he was not allowed to do on his own. And, of course, violating his oath to the Constitution by trying to overturn the election. And he really is, out there by himself because, we've seen Jeffrey Rosen and we've seen one of Jeffrey Rosen's subordinates up testifying before Congress because the Justice Department has already told Rosen and Clark and other DOJ officials from this time period that the department is waiving all of the relevant privileges. Usually the department blocks its officials from coming up and testifying for matters like this, claiming multiple privileges. And they've waived all of them. And that's true for Jeffrey Clark. So, if he wants to avoid a criminal referral and being charged with criminal contempt of Congress, he needs to come up and comply with the subpoena and testify, because otherwise he's in a blatant contempt of Congress. Now, to your point, if he wants to take the fifth, of course, that's his right that's his right. He can do so, but he doesn't have the ability to just blow off the subpoena like he seems to want to do.
So that's another out, right? That's another thing so that conversation was about another guy. That wasn't about Steve Bannon or Mark Meadows or Kash Patel or Dan Scavino, who we all have to wonder, will they ever show up and will they ever give testimony? Will they ever turn over their documents, right? Because we know the process is so unbelievably slow that they can do that. And then if they do show up, okay, after all that time, I mean, we're talking years, then they just take the fifth. That's another way out. That's another. And this guy, Jeffrey Clark, that they're talking about, this was a bureaucrat. Okay. This was a guy who was buried in the bowels of the Department of Justice. He was, he was a subordinate somewhere in the civil division of the Department of Justice. Before that, he worked. You want to know why we need Build Back Better? He worked in the environmental enforcement portion of the Department of Justice. That's where Jeffrey Clark worked. And then he went to the civil division and he was supposed to, adjudicate things that happened inside the government, civil complaints, right? That was his big job. But for some strange reason, this man, who is a nondescript creature. I mean, I don't know if you remember what he looks like, but he is one of those dull, useless looking people, okay, that you expect to be a bureaucrat in your government. I mean, nondescript, just nothing at all to, talk about with regard to his demeanor, his acumen, his intellect, his ideology, like nothing, just a bland bureaucrat. All of a sudden, Donald Trump is, looking for somebody to help him contest a free and fair election and overturn the will of the people, literally to commit crimes against our country, literally to commit crimes. It is a crime to do seditious things in this country. It is a crime to stage an insurrection. It is a crime to try to overturn an election. These are all real crimes. In fact, in Georgia, Donald Trump is, looking at an inordinate amount of charges. I mean, just, the attorney general in Georgia is looking at, God, I don't know how many charges are going to come from the, hey, please find me 11,780 votes to overturn Joe Biden's, victory. I just need one more than he got. That qualifies him for a whole host of federal charges. You're talking conspiracy to commit election fraud. You're talking criminal solicitation. You're talking state RICO violations. You're talking criminal solicitation to commit election fraud. I mean, these things are all actionable under the criminal code of law. All right. So this guy, Jeffrey Clark, not only decided that he was going to step up from obscurity, and he was going to reach out, and this is how he got to the president. He was going to reach out to a friend that he had in Congress, a representative from Pennsylvania. You're going to hear a lot about this guy, Perry, okay? Representative Perry from Pennsylvania, Republican. And Perry actually called the White House and said, I got a guy buried deep in the bowels of DOJ. He's willing to do this. He's willing, as a lawyer, to write bogus letters to 6 states asking them to object to the certification of the electors. And he's going to say that the reason why they need to object is because Chinese thermostats, oh, I swear to God, Nest thermostats, Chinese thermostats were able to penetrate tabulating machines and change the results of the election. That's what Jeffrey Clark wrote down. That's how ridiculous this really is. And when Jeffrey Clark wrote it down, he called this friend in Congress, this representative from Pennsylvania, Perry, and said, tell the president I got this, theory and blah, blah. And Donald Trump responded to him and had him over to the White House for a meeting where Donald Trump threatened to replace the acting attorney general, which we had an acting attorney general, Jeff Rosen, Because Bill Barr said, I'm out in December. There was no fraud. I, did an investigation. Lindsey Graham signed off on it. Senator Mike Lee from Utah signed off on it. And these are some of the most devout Trump supporters. And they said there was no fraud. And I'm out. There's nothing here. There's no fraud at all. So now we have an acting. So the acting is called into a meeting with his deputy, that's Rosen and Donahue, with this bureaucrat, this Jeffrey Clark dude. And Jeffrey Clark says, I wrote this letter. I am going to send this letter out to 6 states saying don't certify the election because Chinese thermostats. And they said, what? Are you out of your cotton picking mind? No way, no how. And Donald Trump says in response to the acting and the deputy acting attorney general, I want it done and I'll replace you with him if you won't sign off on it. And they say, do you know, sir, how many people in the Department of Justice would resign in mass to show that this man Clark has no validity, that this is crazy, that this is mass madness? We will all resign. Everyone will resign, not just me and the deputy, but the U.S. attorneys, the prosecutors, the AGs. We will all resign. Everybody will resign. Nobody will work for this Department of Justice if this man is allowed to send that letter. So now we want to hear from Jeffrey Clark, and we want to know what the hell happened to you. And he can come in or not come in. Then we can litigate it. And then after all that, he could take the fifth.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Well, I think Andrew McCabe has made a fool out of himself over the last couple of days, and he really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. He's I think he's a disaster. And what he was trying to do was terrible, and he was caught. I'm very proud to say we caught him. So we'll see what happens, but he is a disgraced man. He was terminated, not by me, he was terminated by others. The IG report was a disaster from his standpoint. Anybody reading the IG report would say, how could a man like this be involved with the FBI? And the FBI has some of the greatest people, some of the finest people you'll ever meet, but this man is a complete disaster.
The iron, of course, is the former president is now the disaster and the disgraced person. Andrew McCabe joins us. He's senior law enforcement analyst. His first interview since the settlement was reached. Andrew, first of all, what does this mean for you and your family?
Oh, my gosh. Anderson, I can't tell you what this has been like going through, what this whole vindictive campaign has put my wife through, my children, my parents. So to have a settlement of this lawsuit, and one that so clearly indicates this should never have happened, it is both an incredible relief. It's satisfying, but it's also, it's also kind of sad. I mean, like, this should never have happened. My family should never have had to go through this.
So this is the situation in the United States of America after and during Donald Trump. That is that he can just go on TV. He can defame you. He can trash you. He can lie about you. He can accuse you of committing crimes and fire you from a lifetime of service in government. Obviously, he was the FBI director after James Comey was removed for nothing. And then you get to litigate it, right? And then, I don't know what, how many years later? 5 years later, the court finally has a look at your case and says, oh my God, that was political. It was vindictive. It was untrue. So we're going to restore your pension. And that's all you walk away with. That's all that after all those years, after your family, after your mother and your father and your friends and your wife and your children, hear the President of the United States accusing you of crimes while he actually ends up trying to overthrow his own government. Wow. So Andrew McCabe has finally gotten a favorable judgment from a court yesterday saying that what the president said about him was false, that the president did what he did to him for vengeance because he didn't like what the FBI was investigating. They didn't like that they were even looking at whether or not this president was manipulated by or was, organizing the release of Russian hacked materials that were hacked from the Democratic National Committee and were hacked from Hillary Clinton's email server, were turned over to WikiLeaks, and then the Trump campaign coordinated the drip, drip, drip of the release of the Russian-hacked ill-gotten goods. Turns out that really did happen. That is all true. That's exactly what happened. The Russian hackers were indicted by Robert Mueller for doing the hacking, and yet America was told a lie about what the Mueller report actually said happened. And the President of the United States was accused of, you couldn't indict a sitting president, you can't. So he wasn't indicted, but he was accused of, and a great case was laid out against him, that he obstructed justice 10 times. And the President of the United States didn't like that, and so he took revenge against James Comey, against Andy McCabe, against Mueller himself, and Bill Barr helped. Bill Barr held that report for 3 weeks and did a presser, did a whole bunch of pressers, like PR for 3 weeks ahead of the release of the Mueller report, convincing Americans that when the Mueller report came out, all 500 pages of it, there was no need to look at it. There was no need to read it. There was no need to know what was in it because Bill Barr was telling you nothing was found. Nothing illegal was found. And that's a lie. That's a stinking lie. Now, Bill Barr actually said, I think spying did occur and that the spying was against the president.
I think spying did occur.
You remember that? Spying did occur. That was a lie. But in the furtherance of the lie, in the furtherance of the cover-up of Donald Trump's criminal behavior, not only did he get the Attorney General to go along with a cover-up, but he actually trashed people's lives who were just doing their job. And one of those people was James Comey, and the other one was Andy McCabe. And you could like them or not like them. It doesn't matter. Their lives were literally ruined for doing their jobs. Whether you thought they did their jobs well or you didn't like the way they did their job, whatever you think about the way that they did their jobs as the FBI director or the acting director. It doesn't matter. What matters is they were destroyed. Destroyed in the court of public opinion. And Andy McCabe was retaliated against financially. And I don't know if you know this part of the story, but this is really heartbreaking. I want you to listen to the night that he got fired, that Andy McCabe was let go, okay? They did it in the most vicious way.
It's remarkable. I hadn't realized that you had, I think it was on a Friday night, you'd had a meal with your family, essentially a retirement celebration with your family because you were retiring the next day. Oh. And they fired you right before that, consciously, vindictively. What was it like to have the former president, who doesn't know you, I mean, he has no idea of anything about you, just pick you out of, obscurity. Essentially, in terms of his knowledge of you, and just focus on you and attack you?
It was so bizarre, Anderson. On December 23rd of 2017, he tweeted out to the world that he was racing me to my retirement. I mean, to know that you essentially have a target on your back from the most powerful person in the world, the person that you ostensibly work for as a member of the executive branch. I mean, it was like upside down world. Like you can't even, I can't even describe how terrifying and annoying and humiliating that is. But, that's what he subjected people through for 4 years.
What a disgusting, heinous, ugly man. Our former president. Can you believe that? Our former president. So, congratulations to Andy McCabe for finally getting the court to see that this was a political vendetta. They fired him like literally the night that he was retiring, just to keep him from getting his pension. I don't know if everybody remembered that little detail. Anyway, next week is going to be action-packed. Why? Because, I don't know if you realize this, but Congress has not been in session this week. They sometimes get more work done when they're not in session because they can read legislation, they can write legislation, they can, do things that you can't do when you are in session, except for Kirsten Sinema, who is in Europe. Fundraising. I swear to God. So next week, everybody's in session again. House is in session. Senate is in session. So Monday, and we got a lot of stuff going on. So on Monday, Donald Trump will be deposed by a group of people who were beat up by his security detail when he announced for president in 2015. A Bronx judge ordered that the president must be deposed on Monday. On Tuesday night, actually, the House committee, the business committee of the Select Committee on 1-6 will vote out to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. I'm guessing the next day Congress will have a full vote on whether or not to send that to refer it to the Department of Justice. On Wednesday, the Senate will take up the election protection bill, the Freedom to Vote Act that Joe Manchin wrote and promised he would get 10 Republican votes for because, 60 votes is what it takes to pass anything in the Senate. And then on Thursday, Merrick Garland, our Attorney General, will testify for the first time and expect him to answer questions about how to hold people responsible. Have a weekend.